you have to understand the word credit risk. So credit is if an amount, fundamentally credit is in banking, not in banking thing. Credit means fundamentally giving money to your account. So for your account, it is positive, but for the bank which is lending the money, it is negative. So you have to understand in this way. So what is a risk? So fundamentally, the essence of this whole topic is very simple. If I give a loan, for example, if I am the bank and there is a person, I give a loan, I give some amount to a person. I want to see the risk of my credit. My money is going there, so I want to check to what extent will the money be returned. That too with the interest or without interest. But first, my original amount should come back. So I'll have to see the authenticity of the person to which I am giving the money. That is the essence of credit risk in simple words. So, for example, if a guy is running a business very successfully, and let's say I give him 1 lakh rupees, and his gross income is per year is about 5 to 6 lakhs, I will not have any worry. He'll definitely be able to return the money at some point of time. But what if I'm trying to give a money to a lender, to a person who's running a business worth, let's say, about 50,000, 60,000, and I give him a loan of 1 lakh? There is a chance of he repaying the amount, but at the same time, there is more chance that he may not repay the amount at all, or my whole amount is lost. Both these categories can take place. So the risk of my credit is called credit risk. Very simple, in simple languages. Now, what is credit risk? Let us look at the definition of it. So, credit risk is the probability of a borrower defaulting, that means not giving a debt obligations. So, the lender who gives the money not receiving the principal is gone, interest compound is also gone of this debt. That is called credit risk. Now, this can result, what is the effect of it? So, interrupted, because my whole money went off there, I will not be able to supply the cash to other entities which are there in the market. So, this increases the cost of collection. So, please remember this is very important definition. Probability of a borrower defaulting on debt obligations, lender's risk not receiving the principal and the interest component of the debt. This results in interrupted cash flow and increased cost of collection. This is the essence of it. Now, credit risk one-to-one is different, but with respect to financial institutions, it's little different. So, how does financial institutions understand this term credit risk? So, this financial institutions analyze the credit risk associated with each borrower. Why? Is because they want to reduce the losses. That is very important. They want to reduce the losses and if there are any kind of fraudulent activities. So these are the reasons for the way why financial institutions want this term credit risk as an important term. Next, this term can be extended to some similar risks. So for example, a bond issuer may not be able to make the payment. For example, I I give money and let's say he has issued me a bond. So at some point of time, he has to come and collect the bond. When he collects the bond, he has to give me back my money. What if that guy is given me the bond, but at some point of time, due to economic collapse or due to a lot of other reasons, let's say the bond is not able to give me back the money. That means the piece of paper that I have, the bond, will be a waste paper, nothing else. So such kind of things. Similarly, you can think of this with respect to insurance agents. I pay my premium. At some point of time, after 10 years, he has to return me back the amount because nothing has happened. So if he is not able to pay, then what is the situation? So that's a big loss. So these are all different formats of credit risks. So the essence is fundamentally to check what is the situation if things go really bad. That is the thing. So let's move on to the next part. So what are the different types? This is very important. I want every student of UPSC must know all the different kinds of credit risks. The first kind of risk is called default risk. So the simple point is borrower will not be able to pay back the debt. For example, my friend is there. I have given him 50,000. His situations have become bad. He is not able to pay. It becomes a default risk. Or if he is not, with respect to the bank, if a person who has taken the loan, a personal small loan, is not able to repay back in 90 days, past the due date, then such kind of risk is called default risk. So it is obviously bound to happen, therefore it is called default. Next, concentration risk. Concentration, what is concentration over here? The concentration of the risk of this financial institution is with respect to a particular industry. For example, there are countries which run on casinos. There are countries which run on exclusively on, let's say, manufacturing industry. Let's say during some situation the manufacturing industry has fallen down. When this industry falls down, there is an economic collapse in the system. For example, real estate. There are countries which run literally on real estate. Let's say bad time has come and real estate has fallen down very, very, very badly. So what happens is everything goes for a toss. So if the financial institution is if the country's financial institution is dependent exclusively on a particular industry, then that risk is called concentration risk. So the concentration of the money, incoming money and the outgoing money, is based on a particular industry. So that is called concentration. So your concentration is on a particular industry. Next type of this is country risk. Country, the word itself says. For example, let's say let's say India is given a huge amount of loan to some country, and that country went off to economic collapse. That means that country will not be able to return the money to me. So that is called country risk. It denotes the probability of a foreign country defaulting. That risk is also called sovereign risk. What are the reasons for the sovereign risk? For example, the best example is political instability. Suddenly governments change, regimes change. Let's say a democracy suddenly become a military junta. So what happens? The whole system collapses. So what are the reasons for the sovereign risk? One is political unrest, or it might be economic slowdown. So any of these two reasons will be the reason for risk called country risk. So here what you have to remember is country itself is defaulting to return back the money to another country. Such kind of risk is called country risk. So default risk, obvious. Concentration risk with respect to a particular industry. Country risk if there is sovereign risk, if there is political interest. These are three types. Another two types are there. One is called downgrade risk, loss due to credit rating agencies. For example, these rating agencies will give rates how the credits are and how are the balance of payments and all that stuff. So this credit agency will give a rating to a particular institution. It may be a country, it may be a state. They give ratings, or to an institution also. So when these ratings are bad, obviously what happens is their ability to generate money decreases. When their ability to generate money decreases, the ability for them to repay the amount also decreases. So that kind is called downgrade risk. So who is downgrading it? The credit rating agencies are downgrading it. Therefore, it leads to operation inefficiency. Now, why do these credit rating agencies decrease the rates? Because of operation inefficiency of that particular company, state, country, it may be anything. The last type is institutional risk. If the borrowers fail to comply with the regulation, there are rules and regulations. If they are not able to comply to the regulations, there will be a institutional risk. Or contract negligence. There is a contract. Whenever there is a sign, there is a contract, and let's say they break the contract. They think, okay, nothing will happen with respect to the contract, and they're negligent towards a particular contract. During such circumstances, you will have something called an institutional risk. So these are the major 5 types of credit risks which happen within any nation. Next, moving on. So what are the 5 C's for credit ratings? How do you assess a credit risk? First, credit history. Sorry. The credit history. What is the plus and minus of a particular company? The capacity to repay. What are the assets those particular organizations have? What if something goes wrong, will they be able to repay? That is capacity. This is credit history, capacity to repay. What is the capital of that income and what is the net worth of that particular organization? And what are the conditions of the loan? And collateral. These are the 5 C's which are very important. So when you are writing an answer, you must definitely mention these things. So usually the credit risk happens with, before giving the loan, all these 5 C's are actually checked before giving a loan or an amount or a credit to anyone. So be careful with these words. This is about the 5 C's. Next, what is a formula? Please remember this formula. So PD refers to the probability of default. Now for example, let's say I have given about $10,000 to a particular organization, and let's say the default risk. Now EAD refers to exposure at default and LGD refers to loss given default. Now let's assume that the probability of default is about, let's say about 30%. The chance of they not giving. 10,000 is the exposure at default. And the loss, what is a loss given default? LGD. You have to use this formula. So this will be nothing but the PD refers to the probability of default, which is about 30%, into what is EAD, exposure at default, which is $10,000, and into the loss given default. What will be the maximum loss which can happen? Let's say about 10. So this will give me rise to close to 40 grand. This is my exposure. This is how much I have to bear if these people default. That is a institute. So just remember this formula. No one will ask you this formula, but it is better if you know with respect to economics. This is the formula for the credit risk. Now let's say if the LGD is not given to you, it is calculated as 1 minus recovery percentage. What is the chance of recovery? This is 1 minus recovery percentage. If you just know this, I think it should be more than sufficient for you to actually understand the credit risk concept. Just moving on. Now just have a small glance. Expected loss, PD into EAD into LGD. PD is probability, EAD is exposure at default, and what is a loss given default. This formula is very important. Next, moving back, these are the 5 C's which are very important. And then what are the 5 different risks? Default risk, concentration risk, country risk, downgrade risk, and institutional risk. And what is credit risk? We have told you. So if you know all these things, I think you should be able to understand the concept of credit risk. Now once credit risk is covered, the next thing that we'll be discussing about risk weight. What is the weightages of the risk and all that stuff.